There's a question that I'm asked a lot about something that I talk about a lot, and it's how do I talk about that thing? I've taken to being very open about my various problems and issues because I feel like it helps me as a person, and a lot of people see that and they want to get in on that action, but they don't know how to. Talking about mental health and mental illness, especially when it's your mental health and mental illnesses, is scary. It's terrifying. It still is scary and terrifying for me, even though I do it pretty much all the time. So I thought I would talk a little bit about talking about it, because it's something that has become very important to me in my life and getting myself in a place where I can be happy with myself. First of all, I'd like to point out that it's different for pretty much every single person on the face of this planet. For me, I found that talking about my stuff in an open and honest manner has been helpful for me. That's not always true. That's not always true for everyone. But I am a huge advocate of giving that a whirl if you've never tried it before, talking about yourself. Not necessarily in like a public forum like the internet, but like to someone. Talking to someone open and honestly about what you're feeling, what you're thinking. Naturally, given that that's a vulnerable thing to do, to put yourself in a position like that, to share yourself honestly, I thought I would give a few tips about how to talk about it. The first major area in which I find myself talking about my mental illness and mental illness in general is kind of in the sharing perspective aspect. This can be something like therapy, talking to a friend, talking to family, or in my case, vlogging about it. It's kind of like I'm getting up and I'm sharing to you. Like, I'm giving you the information in a kind of like a confidential way. I've found for me that I have to be really comfortable in that situation in order to share myself honestly, because if I'm not 100% comfortable, then I'm gonna hold some things back. And if I'm gonna hold some things back, then I'm not being honest completely, and I'm storing some feelings inside of me, and that's not really, that's kind of counterproductive to the whole point of sharing yourself. The second area of kind of talking about mental illness is a more sort of public, less intimate setting. It's just more talking about it in a general perspective. This can be talking about mental health in a way that's completely separate from you, right? In a way that's just about mental health independently, not necessarily connected to you or anyone else, just the concept of it all. Or, and this is the more scary one, being in a situation where there's a lot of people and you're discussing your situation to them in a less intimate sense, but you're still talking about it. My main piece of advice here would be to stick to what you know about your situation, about the situation of mental health in general. Stick to what you know and be confident in that information, in talking about that information. Confidence is tricky though, because you could actually be nervous. You could actually be scared about talking about your problems and mental health in general to someone who isn't necessarily super close to you. I have been crazy nervous and scared in these situations, but confidence is interesting in that you can almost trick yourself into being confident. That's not to say that genuine confidence doesn't exist, because it does. It does, but it comes from practice. You can't just wake up one morning and be confident. You gotta practice at it sometimes. For example, this past Christmas Eve, my family all throws a gigantic party where all the cousins show up, everybody talks naturally, you're catching up on some things. People have heard about my various problems and struggles, and I've also heard of the fact that I'm not currently in school right now, when most people my age are. Flashback to Christmas Eve of 2012, and I pretty much hid from everyone at the party, and anytime somebody would talk to me about stuff, I just would try and change the subject right away, and I was very, very scared the entire time, and it showed, and it definitely affected how people viewed me at this party. This year I decided to take a different route, because I know the decisions that I have made. I know about my condition. I feel very good about where I'm headed as a person, and I showed that. I showed that when people would ask me about what I'm doing, I would tell them, and I would tell them with not necessarily just a confidence, but a pride, you know, of not only that I'm here, but I'm doing well. I'm not only doing well, I'm beginning to sort of thrive in my life, despite the fact that I could very easily not be thriving. And it definitely had a positive effect on how people looked at me that night, and it was a very good feeling, a feeling that I had not felt in quite some time, when people could look at me and I could say, hey, they actually maybe believe in me for once. Talking about mental health, whether that's your individual problems or discussing it in general, can be a very scary thing, because there's a lot of times where you gotta toe the line, you gotta be really careful about what you say, especially if you're talking to somebody who is struggling with something. But at the same time, I find it incredibly important, because mental health and mental illness is one of the most stigmatized things in our current society right now. Just to throw out a few words, you have insane, you have crazy, you have junkie, things like that, words that diminish people who are sick. And that's not okay to me. But one of the best things that I've learned in my own personal recovery is that one of the most effective ways to make people think that you are okay and that you are getting better actually is to be okay. And to be okay with who you are, to be okay with what you're dealing with, and to be okay with the journey and the process that you're a part of. I can't change what's said about me on the outside, what people hear about me on the grapevine, about what's happened in my life over the past couple of years. I can't change that at all, but what I can do is continue to be confident and continue to believe in the process and the journey that I am on, because I do believe in that. Because I am always going to be dealing with this in some capacity. I am always going to be struggling with this. It's going to be with me my whole life. It's with a lot of people for their whole lives. But I can't let that define me, because it doesn't define me. It's a part of me. It's not the whole picture. At the end of the day, everybody has their stuff, right? Everybody's got their problems, whether that's a situational problem in your life, whether that's a problem with your body, whether that's a problem with your brain. Everybody has their stuff. And the challenge isn't just to survive our problems, it's to live beyond them, to have them be a part of our story, but not the entire thing, and to use them to move forward and to make ourselves better people. At least that's what it is for me. That's what all this is about. And that's why I like to talk about mental health, because it helps me to live beyond my problems, helps me to continue to trust that I'm gonna be okay. That's pretty much all I gotta say about that. As always, I'm Connor Manning. You've just become a little more awesome, and I will see you guys on Friday. Oh no, you scared him. He's shy. He's shy. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry. You scared my horse.